Our next presenter is Jan-Willem Bult from who is going to speak about Wadada news for kids. And I don't know if you have a PowerPoint, Jan, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But you're welcome to share the screen. So he's going to talk about the Wadada news for kids with children at the center. So thanks for being with us, Jan-Willem.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I don't show slides. I have here my permanent picture of Wadada here. Actually, it's very interesting. If you look at this picture, this is the picture that speaks more than 1,000 words. It is a reporter of the Wadada news, local news in Nicaragua, who went to the province where there is a garbage belt, and he found a girl living there and interviewed her. That is also one of the powers of News for Kids. It is a catalyst of children's rights. It is a catalyst of integrating young people in on screen. And besides that, it's essential to have news on the level of different ages. I'm always speaking about what other news is for children or for youth. You cannot make news for children and youth. You have to address them in a specific way. And we're all working with children and youth. We know that how specificer you are, the more clear and the more strong messages can come through. Yes, what other news? Where does it come from? I'm working for a Dutch NGO that is called Free Press Unlimited. And Free Press Unlimited is taking care that press freedom around the world exists. And if you translate that to what is the consequence of that for younger audiences, it means that we are developing tailor-made news programs, news bulletins, news items for children or youth. This started already in 2004 under the then name Kids News Network, KNN. In the first 10 years it was called like that. And in the first 10 years, the focus was on countries in transition or development countries. In 2014, I joined the NGO partly, and they asked me to further develop it. And my first suggestion was, why aren't we opening up for all the countries in the world? Of course, it will be hard to find funding. I mean, not only for the development countries, but for any country. But why would we isolate it? Why would we isolate it? So we decided also to change the name, and the name became any name that you start that you want to give a kind of special meaning, which is Wadada is a word that did not exist, and we used the word Wadada to make clear that we're talking about news either for children or for youth. So since 2014, Wadada news further developed, and some 11 more countries we managed to develop special news bulletins for children or youth, and to further expand the network of cooperation, because one of the strong parts of this Wadada news network is the exchange of materials. So in a way, we have a network of correspondence. In a way, we are also promoting diversity. So that is how, during those years, the traditional television project Wadada was developed. But at the same time, in 2014, we put the focus not only on the traditional media, but put the focus on the social media. And one of the projects lately that I'm very strongly in development with is to make news in vertical video and to focus on, for instance, TikTok news. If you look, for instance, and that's why I'm very happy with this session where we talk about research, which is crucial for this area and is very under-researched over the last decades. So I'm very happy with this step forward. But one of the things that I am being very interested in what's going on in TikTok, which connects millions of young people around the world, crossing all kinds of borders, is that news basically was not existing there. And through the war in Ukraine, it became a huge thing. For instance, a brand like BBC News was not existing in TikTok. During the war, they started to build their brand. They still have only 50,000 followers. The reason is that they just take the news pieces that they make in horizontal format for television and cut it a little bit for to put it on TikTok. This is not how youth wants to consume and wants to participate in news. You really have to go out there and develop also vertical video skills. So, I mean, we're in the middle of having these real new challenges that there are platforms that reach youth and children massively, but where the development of language, the development of styles of news reporting is in a very early stage. So that part has especially my interest, always working in innovation of media, also myself as a film and television and interactivity maker. But so one of the things I think that has to change in the mindset of those people who take the decisions, let's say the 45 plus, is that vertical video is a huge challenge, a huge new way of expressing news. Basically for interview, it's even much more interesting and much more strong to shoot it. So in order to really connect with youth, with news, we have to be much more innovative and very fast. And one of the things that you can do as a project that we're doing in Montenegro with the support of UNICEF there is to integrate youth reporters. So to train youth reporters in journalism and ethics of journalism, work together with journalists and produce new forms of news that reaches youth, that inform them and engage them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jan-Willem. And it's really inspiring to hear about Free Press Unlimited and the investment that's being made in this area. So I know we will have some more questions related to the work that you're doing.
Just one thing to add to that. I'm really sad about the fact that it's getting more and more difficult to fund. I mean, in Europe, we have the luxury of having public, independent public channels where there are some 10, 15 news programs dedicated for children. But in the rest of the world, it's very difficult. And that is one of the things that is worrying me most, and their civil society has to play an important role.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I was wondering also if Jan-Willem, if you could comment on this, because I think it is very useful for us to be able to hear about the amazing work that is being funded by your foundation. But also I think one of the things, just to echo what Chris had said earlier, we can't expect to rely on foundations to be the only source or even the primary source for funding that's going to make it possible for us to have the societies that we want to, especially as things become so complicated with social media. And, I think Cindy mentioned we've been talking quite a bit about television in some ways, because those are institutions that will deal with educators to some extent. Whereas, when you're talking about ByteDance, which is the owner of TikTok, and you're talking about Google and Facebook, they're definitely not they're even resisting the idea of seeing themselves as having a public responsibility. So I guess I'm curious about what you see for, how we can go forward. What kinds of things would be useful for you in terms of scholarly work, to kind of help foster a conversation with policymakers, to help foundations to be kind of a leverage point for conversing with national contexts.
Well, the development of Wadada News was mainly funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands. Later, also the National Postcode Lottery, which is one of the major funders of, let's say, good causes. But for instance, in Montenegro, we work with UNICEF and the national regulator. And like in Europe, there is this strong position of public television, where public television has a budget and invested in serious things like News for Kids as well. I try to develop that in Latin America, for instance, with what they call public television. But every 4 years after an election, all the people were fired and we had to start all over again. That is not public television, that's state television. So I was very disappointed about that there too. So I think here's a huge chance for United Nations, for UNICEF specifically, for UNESCO to step in to this area, because like I said, it is a catalyst of children's rights. And Of course, you need to have independent editorial organizations to do it. But supporting, funding, or helping to raise the funds through those kind of organizations, I think there's absolutely a future for